name is Marsha Solario, and I'm a 20-year resident of West Covina and the current chair of the Finance and Audit Committee. So I'm here tonight to talk about item 15, and my comments are in no way towards the applicants that are here tonight, hopefully to get appointed, but just in regards to how did we get here tonight. So I did send an email earlier today to Mr. Carmani, and I appreciate that his prompt reply, but I still have some additional questions that need clarification. So although I've been on this committee a year, and this is my first committee I'm on for the city, it's not the first time I've applied for a committee or a commission. Throughout the years I've applied many times, was never called back, so it's fine. This is my time. So I'm pretty familiar with the process. Typically, we see on the website, city website, okay, here's a window, apply from this time to this time for this opening, and people submit their applications, and people are appointed. And this time, when I got the agenda for tonight's meeting, I was a little shocked to find that we were appointing members tonight, because I don't recall ever seeing a window for applications being posted. And so that was what my email was about tonight to Mr. Carmani. He said, did I miss something? I know we're busy. What happened? And so he did reply that it was posted and it's going to be addressed during the item. So I just wanted to reiterate that during the item, I think for the sake of the residents, we should talk about why that process changed from the last many years of doing that, because it makes it appear like we're not being transparent, and I know that's not the intent of however we came to today. And so I think for people in the future that would like to apply to be on a committee, this would be great information to have that moving forward. Hey, this is how you're going to find out about it. If it's only through the postings in the job posting, which is the only place I found it, then we could set up, I could tell people, hey, set up the alerts. This is the only way you're going to know about it. Because other than that, unless someone can show me otherwise, I did not find any information about that application window. So, like I said, Mr. Kamani addressed my concern, and so I looked up the job posting, and I see that, and I feel like I kind of see that that's meeting your legal requirement, right, to regards to notice. But again, the change makes it seem like something happened, and we're not being truly transparent. So, just let's address that, and then so in the future we can get a few more applications. Thank you.
Good evening. Redholtz, longtime resident. It was great to see the young people from the high school be recognized tonight. It's encouraging to know that we have this type of youth in our schools, and I think the city probably has a good future with these kind of kids. Hopefully they'll stay here in West Covina and contribute to the continued success of the city. And kind of in that same vein, I'm really up here tonight to ask you to make a request that we memorialize and commemorate in some manner our friend and Commissioner Phil Kaufman, who recently passed away. I'm not suggesting that we rename a building after him, but
put a statue.
But I am suggesting that perhaps we can look into some form of recognition in the, as a room, a wall, a bench, something, so that his many years of service can be memorialized in some fashion. So when people, they might say it's a bench, years down the road, well, this is dedicated to the memory of Phil Kaufman, who served the city, for so many years on this commission, and it can spur a conversation. It could even encourage others to want to serve in some capacity. So perhaps you could ask the Community and Senior Services Commission, on which he served with such distinction for many years, to mull this over and come back to you with some suggestions. It's, you know, I think this was debated years ago as far as naming buildings. I don't know that the city ever even came up with a policy at that time, but I seem to remember that conversation 20 years ago. It probably went away. But I think it would be the right thing to do. You know, I mean, the mayors, the past mayors, and that's another level, I understand, but you know, they're recognized in the community room with their pictures and so forth. And there's other, maybe even here, you know, I don't know. But that's something that they maybe could kick around and come back to you, and I think it should be considered in some way to honor him, to keep his memory alive, please. That's it. Thank you.
After Elsie Messman, I'd like to call forward Shirley Buchanan, followed by Birdie, followed by Angie Gillingham.
Mayor, council, and staff, and everyone here tonight. Excuse me. My name is Elsie Messman. I would like to update some of our residents as to what a few of our council and commissioners are doing to our city. Some staff have retired, some are fired, and some just left, leaving the city with no management. The few that left are our city manager, our city attorney, our finance director, human resource director, police chief, fire chief, plus regular employees. Items that are being passed by this council and commissions are only going to hurt the residents. The item in the paper said that raising the tax, it would bring in $9 million to the city. I would like to know where this figure was reached. Also, this tax is not only to support the police and fire, but it is put into the general fund, and it can be spent on anything the council wants. Mr. Grivich and other members of the committee have stated we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. And I'll repeat, a spending problem. Just look at the warrants list. This reminds me back in 2006, council sold land at BKK for $1.1 million and said it would bring in $5.3 million to the city. That was 13 years ago, and it brought in zip and $0 to the city. My point being, politicians have a habit of lying to get what they want. And I'd like to know if Mr. Kennedy's idea to increase the tax to support the city or benefit himself. Portos is the only good thing that happened in West Covina. Most of the ideas that are proposed to our residents, either they get hurt or they don't want it. Example, 5 more cell towers on the south side. Gas stations sell gasoline means if one is approved, more gas stations can have alcohol. This dealer has come to this city 4 times already. Every time a new council appears, he does too. The fact that he needs to feed his family after 40 years, he should try lowering his gas prices. Going back to the spending problem in the city, West Covina Ford in 1 year the city spent $590,000 for repairs for the city vehicles and another $123,000 for uninsured losses. This does not pass the smell test. Now we have an attorney fee for the month of May, almost $71,000. And to cover the stairway, we spent another $108,000. And I could go on. We need staff to work 8 to 5, 5 days a week, and not 4 10-hour days. Cities should be here to serve their residents, not for their convenience. And how many amendments are we going to give to Jones and Myers, the attorneys? Look for another company. Seems like there's no oversight. This is the 3rd amendment for this company. Something's wrong someplace. Now regarding security lighting and cameras in the parks. This is a great idea, but here again, where is the money coming from for all of the parks? This item should be put on hold until she can find the money to pay for it all. Here again, we have a spending problem. I rest my case.
That's something to pass out. Hi, I'm here to speak about appointments and termination of commissioners. I recently read the article in the San Gabriel Tribune on August 5th regarding the petition that is currently being circulated by a planning commissioner who is supporting, in his words, pushing to add to the police department and fire department in our city by increasing our local taxes to 10.25. This commissioner is being paid handsomely by the West Covina PD. Just in 2019, $5,500. I've given you a copy of his $460. The audit committee that is being this commissioner is being paid handsomely by the West Covina PD, $5,500 for his support of the tax increase and removal of the existing audit committee. The audit committee that is being stonewalled as one of its key members continues to ask questions about skyrocketing fire department overtime. I wonder what the councilperson who appointed him feels about this subject. Councilperson Ms. Shewmaker also sits on the audit committee. Along with the tax increase, this ordinance would create an oversight committee, including members of the fire department and police department. You heard correctly. The fire department and the police department would be overseeing their own expenditures. The current audit committee has been successful in combing through city finances and making discoveries of waste and abuse that benefits us residents. I wonder if the appointment, Ms. Shewmaker, who appointed Mr. Kennedy to that position, shares Planning Commissioner Kennedy's same view. If not, will she remove him? Councilmember woman Ms. Lopez Viado had appointed a resident as an HR commissioner. Just a few months later, Ms. Lopez Viado removed that resident from the HR commission because the resident was not representing her views. Councilman Shewmaker, will you be removing Commissioner Kennedy, or is he reflecting your views on the sale tax increase and removal of the audit committee? Also, I would like to ask the city attorney if there are any restrictions on a sitting commissioner being paid for political activities. Lastly, I know that subject of the increase is not on the council's agenda. Please put it on the agenda. You can easily do that if you're willing to discuss this matter publicly. Former Councilman Spence regularly used this technique so that the City Council could discuss matters without violating the Brown Act or other rules. We residents would like to hear from you on this subject. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. I'm here on a subject that I have been, this is my third time on the subject, going back to the 90s. We need, and I repeat, we need overnight paid parking in our city. Oh, that's right, we don't need the money, right? We have issues where we live. Ballin Park has overnight, Covina has overnight. Ballin Park is coming over to our part of the city to park all night. So people with extra cars cannot park on our own streets. I've been on this, and we have people in my complex who have a second car. Now, example, one person took her car out today after the guy came to sweep. Then she put it back after 12, and that car is going to stay there for the next 2 weeks. What happened to our 72-hour ordinance? Now, I'm not blaming the police department because they are short of help. What happened to the senior volunteers that used to be out when I first moved out to this complex, 6 in the morning giving citations if you were parked there on the day of sweep day? What happened to the ones that would come when we tell them, hey, this car's been here, more than 72 hours. They, mark it, tag it, and 4 days later they'll come and tow it. Something has to be done with our parking. This is, like I said, my third time since the early 90s. And I don't know why people, and the parking permit for a year is not that much. I have a carport, but I still have to get a parking permit for the fact that I still have to go to my son's house in West Covina. So I have to get a yearly pass. And if I can afford a little yearly pass and I got low income, I know everybody else can afford it. You go along Puente Avenue between Sunset, I'm gonna say Lark Allen. How many cars are crashed and parked there? Not minutes, it's months. Right now, we have a car on Orange Avenue, just north of Sunset, Puente. You say, okay, it's been there for 3 weeks. It had an accident. And you know, I mean, sure, you can call the cops, but what happened to our seniors, our volunteers? I have not seen a car of a senior for 2-3 years in the city, driving the streets. And those people start at 6 a.m. because us seniors get up early. So I know that's why they started early. I think it's sad. Our motto is West Covina beautiful, not West Covina ghetto. That's what I feel that I live in now. And Lloyd, you're our representative. I need to meet with you. You're gonna walk the street with me. Today, I was running back and forth, taking pictures here and there, everywhere. And I would like to say to Chief Bell, I'm very proud of Sergeant Brian Daniels. He helped me on a lot of this. We got a big motorhome that sits out there, 4 or 5 days, and guess what? The parking on that side of the street is 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. We got cars there parked all day and all night. Why aren't they ticketed? Granted, we do not get that much money when the officer has to give a ticket like that, but if we had overnight parking, all that would come back to us, to the city. And I'm sorry, but you know what? The city is declining. I've been here 48 years. And I've done a lot for the city with traffic lights or whatever, but I don't know, we get a new generation of people, I don't want overnight parking. Well then don't put your car out in the street for more than 72 hours. If you people really need the money, you're gonna make your money there. Granted, you got parts of West Covina that have overnight parking, or you got another, that looks tacky. Do it for the whole city. It'll look better. Covina, people in Covina are coming to the West Covina side over off of Puente Avenue to the West Covina side, on this side of Azusa. Because they want to pay for parking. Well, come on, let's bring money in the city and to get this parking situation straightened up. And I'm not going to be done with it, but I really want to thank Sergeant Brian Daniels. He is terrific. All the officers are terrific. But when I get on the phone, I start picking on somebody. They do a lot. So I want to thank you for your time and some of these people here that talked about certain things. I say I must agree with wise people. Oh, I know what you need. You need a non-paid commission for, what is it, when they go around, and when you go around and inspect yards. Terry's over it. We need, and I really feel all the so-called people that serve on a committee, that should be volunteered, not paid. We need a code enforcement commission, one from each district. Meet once a month, drive through your district. And if your people are getting paid now, the people you appointed, they're not sincere citizens. They're not. They ought to do it for free. Just like you guys, you all have good jobs out here. You all have, health benefits and all that. You're double dipping. That's what you guys are doing. And I know I've never been this fast in concept.
Thank you, Birdie.
You're welcome, and you better meet
I
me.
will.
You know, if you don't meet with me, you will not win, Lord.
I've known her for a long
Steve
time.
Herford can tell you, Mike Toohey can tell you, you want me on your side to be elected? Thank you for your time.
Yes.
Shirley Buchanan, followed by Jerri Potras, followed by Jim Grivich. And if you could please watch your time. Unfortunately, the buzzer's not working, so when your 5 minutes is up, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Johnson, Mayor Pro Tem Wu, and council members. My name is Shirley Buchanan, for the record. My husband and I have been residents of our dear city since July 6, 1956. A conflict of interest exists even if no unethical or improper act is a result of a planning commissioner's actions. A member of the planning commission that receives a monetary compensation from the city each month has been hired by the West Covina Police Political Action Committee as a consultant to organize a movement to circulate a petition within the city of West Covina for the purpose of getting over 5,000 signatures to place an item on the November 2019 ballot to increase the city's sales tax payable in the city from 9.5% to 10.25%. If it gets on the November ballot, it will also replace a 5-member Finance and Audit Committee with a 9-member Oversight Committee. As of December 31st, 2018, the PACS 460 form shows the Planning Commissioner has received $9,000. This personal consultant fee with a specific purpose might adversely affect his duty to make decisions as a planning commissioner for the benefit of the West Covina Police Association. In addition, his association with the City Council on city planning issues may also be perceived as influential in their vote. If the planning commissioner wants to continue to be paid as a consultant for the West Covina PD PAC, he should ask to be removed as a member of the Planning Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Jerri Potras.
Good evening, Jerri Potras, West Covina resident. I am here as a voice to talk about the sales tax and audit committee initiative. I don't really want to go in and talk about the sales tax per se. That's a separate discussion. I don't really know much of your views on this. I'd like you to put it on the agenda so we do find your views. Many residents would like that. The issue I have with this initiative, there's many, but the main one is it is so severely flawed. The public sector works on process and rules. An ordinance that gets passed, I don't believe it counts by voters. I don't think you can just change it willy-nilly. When we voted to keep the fire department years ago, we were told the council can't just contract that out. The voters would have to vote on that. I'm applying that principle to this. The fact that this initiative puts the audit committee in there is bad enough. But the ordinance, section 11 specifically, 11D is the one that really got my attention. The ordinance not only renames the audit committee to an oversight committee, and they have completely different purposes. The ordinance puts police and fire personnel on the committee. You cannot, as an employee, audit your own committee. It just doesn't work. Moreover, the audit, section 11D, has a clause where for the council, any council, to change that ordinance, to change the purpose or the committee membership, the police union president has to approve it. Then they consult also with the fire union president. So the council basically has to get the union president to approve it. That's severely flawed. Now, where I worked one time, we actually had a board of trustees approve something along those lines. Happened to be with police, happened to be with overtime, where my district gave the police the decisions, the authority to handle the overtime. Guess what happened with the budget? Boom! This is a severely, severely flawed ordinance. Please, council, get out in front and start leading on this. I don't care what the politics were that got you elected. I don't care what your campaign promises were. This needs to have your input. You represent us. You have to balance the business interest with the taxpayer resident interest, with the employee interest. This ordinance is flawed and should not make it to a ballot. Should not get that's my objection on the social media platform, the flawed ordinance. We have Mr. Carmody, who's working on changing the city to a contract city. We have Mayor Pro Tem Wu, who has a plan to reduce overtime. I don't see why this has to be rushed. I understand timelines, but to put a flawed ordinance in, the only way we're going to change it is to vote it out again, and that isn't going to happen. Thank you.
Jim Grivich, as you know, I normally have an overhead, but we had some technical difficulties in getting it here tonight, so it will not be available for the audience. I apologize to the audience for that. I'm actually here primarily because of an article I read in the Sangerville Valley Tribune on August 5th. One of the city officials is quoted as having said, it isn't a spending problem we have now, it's a revenue problem. And when I read that, I was actually distressed. And the reason I was distressed is I've been appearing before the city council now for just about 4 years. And if I have said anything at all in those 4 years, is that the city has failed to manage its budget properly. I presented the same charts over and over again, and I'm giving the same chart that I did last year once again, and I'm going to go over it in some detail. Because if there isn't an understanding of this, it's kind of hopeless that our city will ever manage its budget. In the last 5 years, the city has had an extreme increase in revenue. I'm going to repeat that. In the last 5 years, the city has had an extreme increase in revenue. The revenue has gone up over 5% per year. That's a lot of money. The consumer price index has only gone up less than 2% a year during that same time frame. Believe it or not, I've done government budgets for 50 years. It's kind of, think how old I am now. I have never had a situation like that in all those 50 years where the money came in at that level above consumer price index. In fact, most of the years, more than half of them, the revenue that came in was less than the consumer price index. We had to explain to our employees year after year, we couldn't even give them 2% on their raise because there was no money. And yet, this city is blessed with so much money. And yet, somehow or other, they feel that they don't have revenue. I cannot understand how people can misread numbers like this. It's so obvious. The next chart I'd like to talk about is on the expenditure side. Yes, the city has an expenditure problem and has had a problem for the last 3 years. Now, this is only a 3-year time frame. Each and every year, I've got up before the city council and said the city has to manage its expenditures. They have to control their expenditures. They have to stay within budget. Each of those 3 years, it has not happened. I define that as an expenditure problem. The city is not managing its budget. It has not. And yes, I've heard assurances by the current city manager that that won't happen this year. Great. My applause if it doesn't happen this year. But I think it is absolutely and totally inaccurate and wrong to state that the city does not have an expenditure problem. It has a serious expenditure problem. The red line representing expenditures, as you can see, is well above the budget each and every year. If it had stayed within budget, the city would now have $10 million more than it has right now. That's a lot of money, simply because of mismanagement of money. That's why it's there. Now, there have been other times when I've talked about the details of how the money's been managed, but my point isn't that tonight. My point is simply that the reason the city has fiscal year is failure to manage it. It's not because there hasn't been enough money coming in. It's simply there is a need to control it. If, in fact, the city stays within the budget that this council has already adopted, you will not have any financial problem. The financial problem will happen if you spend more than you take in. That's essentially what it is. And just one comment about the audit committee. When I first started this, doing these presentations, there was no audit committee. And the then council, that was 3.5 years ago now, also was being subjected to actually a state audit. This was back in 2015. I'm not even sure most of you are aware of that.
We're wrapping up with 5 minutes up.
But they found, according to the Los Angeles Times, that West Covina was guilty of massive fiscal mismanagement. And essentially, they mandated the creation of the audit committee. I hope you keep that in mind.
Thank you.
John Shewmaker, followed by Chris Miller, for return for the next meeting.
First of all, I'm going to speak on behalf of a couple items on Glenn Kennedy, who's currently in the hospital, and he'll be going through some additional cancer surgery tomorrow. So I hope you wish him well. Regarding being a commissioner, a planning commissioner, Mr. Kennedy assured me that the next time the West Covina Police Officers Association or the West Covina Firefighters Association comes before the Planning Commission for a variance for a building or a project they have, he'll recuse himself. Because that's the only thing he can do as a planning commissioner. He has no authority over anything else at all. So he has given us that assurance. What I find kind of interesting is Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Wu, some of the people who talk, constantly accuse him of running the city. That everything is done based on what he says, that he controls everything. He's against the tax. He has said it's unnecessary. Well, I guess you don't run the city. Because there's a whole bunch of people who are wanting to do something else. I found something interesting in a comment made by some person that said, we'll never be able to change the ordinance because the voters won't allow it. Well, isn't that saying the voters are saying they may want this? The voters. We won't know until it gets on the ballot, even if it gets on the ballot. You know, it's kind of funny they talk about the audit committee and how it's been around for 3.5 to 4 years. And all the mismanagement and misspending that occurred during that time. Scratch your head and go, how effective. Now, what council was it that expanded the areas that they wanted to look at? The audit committee went from meeting once or twice a year to, you guys are meeting almost monthly now, aren't you? You're looking at different areas. So the council that expands it and says, we want your expertise and want your opinion, is being accused of wanting to get rid of it. Now, I think it's really kind of funny about the audit committee. I don't hear them demanding that the city treasurer be removed from the audit committee. The city treasurer is the top person in the finance department. The top person in the finance department. What do the auditors audit? The finance department. But I don't hear them saying, get her off of there. She shouldn't be there. The other thing they don't mention is 2 of you were there. You're responsible for the city. Well, you could argue you shouldn't be there either.
but they don't complain about that. What's more is the audit committee is appointed by who? The city council. I speak from kind of some expertise in this. For 40 years, I've worked in the county of finance, CPA, certified public accountant, which means the state of California said I can use numbers for life. I'm a certified management accountant. I'm a chartered global management accountant. I'm an MBA, DBA. So I got kind of some background. And I used to fix corporations that had problems. Now, one of the things they spend a lot of time talking about, and they're blaming you, and only 2 of you can kind of get blamed for it, the other 3 can't, is they're talking about how the city overspent for the last 3, 4, 5 years. How long have 3 of you been on this council? No years. So they're damning you for what previous councils did. Doesn't quite make sense. Well, 3 of them are gone now. So we can have a little bit more on that. You know, the whole thing is really simple. You guys have expanded the duties of the committee. You can get rid of the committee like that. 3 votes, that's all it takes. Well, if they're so concerned about it, if this thing gets to the ballot and gets passed, you can solve it real easy. You create the finance committee and give them the same damn duties. Problem solved. Thank you.
Chris Miller, 19-year resident. First, I was only going to talk about 12, but hearing a lot of the topics tonight. First, I'd like to start off with some of the points made by Mr. Shewmaker, Ms. Potras, and Mr. Grivich. The one thing about the audit committee for the last 3.5 years is they have not been getting the information they wanted. You know, they've been in the dark, and it's been fighting to get the information they need to truly look at the city finances. And I've gone to a couple of meetings, and you know, it's a recurring theme. The other thing is, you know, I don't want the audit committee to balloon and become an oversight committee. I think we really need the way it is now to really dig deep and figure out what is going on in our city, because we are overspending and it's out of control. And it ties into item 12. I don't know how many times I've come out to council to talk about the purchasing of equipment and the way it's done. It's not by, you know, the best price or anything. It seems like, let's go to our buddy over here and see what they can give us for something. You know, it really needs to go out to bid, or even find, you know, volunteers in the city to go purchase items. You know, go find where the best deals are, come back to the city, have you guys approve it, or, you know, appoint the city manager to review everything and go from there. There's not any due diligence. You know, I don't know in what item 12, it doesn't describe what kind of pickup or anything, but I did a search really quick on KBB. And for a 2019 Dodge, Chevy, or Ford 1-ton crew cab diesel 4x4, which is more expensive than a gas, you're looking at $47,000, average fair price, $254, being the most expensive being Chevy, the cheapest being Dodge. Yet, what the report says, we're going to buy a vehicle for $62,000. And by the time we get done paying the lease and can buy it after 5 years, and since when does the city keep a vehicle for more than 5 years on that level? For $1. So we're paying $73,000 on something that is only $47,000. The other item is this truck only going to be used for out-of-town mutual aid, or will it be used for other things? Some of the things I brought up in previous council meetings of going, you know, using it as a first response vehicle to quickly get to a site rather than rolling a fire truck. And also having that vehicle being manned by a staff that double duty for permanent vehicles like fire trucks or ambulances to reduce in overtime. You know, just a thought. So, you know, in a nutshell, not, you know, I've been going to meetings for 3-4 years now. In a way, it seems like nothing has changed. We're still seeing the same stuff happen. And we're still overspending, and we still have the same issues. You know, revenue's going through the roof. We have portals, we have other things. Let's get things back to reality. Thank you.
We have no more speaker cards. I have no other way to do it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other question, well, I'd like to have call the applicants one at a time. So, tell us about themselves.
Donna Chia.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. I would like to have an opportunity to serve on the Finance and Audit Committee Board for the City of West Covina. My name is Donna Chia, and I've been a 25 years plus resident of West Covina. And I have a bachelor's degree from UCLA and an MBA from UC Riverside. I currently work at Southern California Gas as a contracts compliance advisor. And part of my current job is to ensure that the business units within our company is adhering to the Sarbanes-Oxley controls and ensuring that the controls designed to identify any potential accounting errors and fraudulent practices. I currently also serve on my HOA board, and I am also volunteer as a Girl Scout troop leader. So I have seen many positive changes within the city within a few years, and I really do want the opportunity to be able to serve the city and contribute my knowledge, experience, and skills to hopefully better the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
David Lynn.
Good evening, all city council members, city staff, and West Covina residents. My name is David Lynn. I am a resident of West Covina for a couple of years, and I'm here tonight to introduce myself briefly and to express my interest to be reappointed by the city council due to my expired term. For residents who do not know me very well, I'm currently a member of this committee for 1 year. Professionally, I'm presently working for a leading credit union as an operational risk manager. And prior to taking this role, I had over 10 years of internal audit experience, which cover areas like compliance, IT, and operational risk. In addition, I'm also a holder of active certifications such as Certified Internal Auditor, Certified Credit Union Internal Auditor, and a certification in Risk Management Assurance. During the past year, I really enjoyed working alongside my fellow committee members in identifying control weaknesses and providing our recommendations to help enhance the city's financial conditions. Thank you all for considering my application. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any comments?
Okay. First, I want to thank you guys to willing to serve as a volunteer for our city, and especially this is kind of special profession that myself I have no this knowledge. So we depend on somebody like you guys and know about the finance and as auditors, and we already even I think you remember this year we increased not only become an auditor, we want to get more information from you guys, so we add a finance, become a finance audit, and commission. So we really want you guys to check the city spending, because I agree with James, it's a spending, it's a problem, it's not the revenue. Revenue, we continue to increase, but if we are spending cannot control, then end up, we always have a deficit. So this is so important to our finance, audit commission, to have good people like you guys willing to serve. And more important thing, you come from our community, so you love this city, you want to contribute. Like 5 of us, we basically, somebody said we double dip. I think 5 of us, we take insurance, we don't give up basically everything and try to serve our community, because we live over here for a long time. time. We try to improve the city, and we try to do our best. So I want to thank you guys willing to serve, and I want to thank Jim. Okay, Jim's always come over here to talk about, okay, thing and with no graphic, okay, very famous, okay, I want to show the, see the graphic, see this graphic. Okay, so I know we have the same spending, okay, problem, so that's why we need you guys to help us. So once again, I want to thank you willing to serve, and I want to thank you to do city good. Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, any other comment? If not, we have a roll call. Pass it. I make a motion. Okay, I'll make, do we have a consensus? I'll make a motion that we, okay, item number 15. Do you have a second? I'll second. We have
If you could clarify the motion.
The matter motion is to accept the appointments and finance of the audit committees of the two members.
2 members.
The 2 members for 2 years.
2 years. All right.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Second. Second.
Councilman Castellanos?
Aye.
Councilwoman Lopez Viado? Aye. Councilmember Shewmaker? Aye. Mayor Pro Tem Wu?
Aye.
Mayor Johnson?
Aye. It passes 5-0. Welcome aboard. Thank you for wanting to serve. Next, do we have any